So thank you so much for joining us. Let's, for the sake of this exercise, imagine that you are a product manager at Airbnb and you're specifically within the group focused on Airbnb experiences. So this is the part of Airbnb that is not about booking lodging or where you're going to stay, but what are you going to do on that trip? Take a cooking class, go do a tour of the city. And obviously, pre-COVID, I think all of these, if not, maybe not all of them, but they were in person. And then post-COVID, they've got a mix of in-person stuff that's coming back, obviously, and then virtual events that they started hosting. But anyway, you're focused on experiences. And your manager comes to you and says, hey, how do we grow experiences further? Like, we think we've got a great product, but we really want to step on the gas and grow this thing. So open-ended prompt for you is, how do we grow Airbnb experiences?
Okay. So I'm a product manager at Airbnb, specific on experiences, not thinking about the lodging section, and experiences being what you do on your trip. And my manager is asking me how to grow experiences because it's a great product, but we need to step on the gas, which I'm interpreting as adding more people. So I guess at this point, I'm asking a clarifying question of, does that mean, if we're assuming that the product itself is great, so we need to drive more users to the product. So what I know of Airbnb experience is that you have the people attending the experience, you have the people hosting experience, and then the revenue from experience. So the growth there would be users or revenue?
We're primarily focused at this point with driving user growth. Okay. And sort of the belief from the team is that if we drive user growth, the revenue growth will come, because if people are there and they're booking experiences, as long as the average selling price for an experience doesn't go to zero, we should make more money.
Okay. And then, so I've done experiences, but I haven't actually booked them personally. I've just participated in.
Okay.
I want to confirm that the way that the Airbnb experience works is that you go on the same Airbnb app as the lodging. You go in, you search for experience, it gives you your results. Actually, I don't think you even search for it. You just browse experiences and then you click through them, view a page, check out, and then, get your information, and then you attend the experience. Is that
so
you take?
Yeah, that is right, with one small exception. I think the way the experience is sort of homepage is laid out is that there's all these tiles of different experiences, and I think categories of experiences you could do. I think you also can search through them, so I don't think it's not that search isn't available, but it may not be the prominent way it's focused, or the prominent way that people discover experiences.
Okay. And again, given the fact that in the original question we talked about, as my manager, you're saying that we already think that it's a great product, so we're not particularly worried about rearranging the presentation of results or optimizing the search or the checkout or anything, but we're really trying to drive traffic to something that we know is already good, rather than optimizing the other parts of the product process itself.
Yeah, so what we know is we've done a lot of user research on folks, the customers that have already booked and done experiences, and the NPS from those users is very high. People say great things, that the average rating on experiences is very high. So people are having a good experience, they're saying positive things. And then the other thing, so that's the user research, and people that have booked experiences are happy. So that's the first thing. The second thing the team has learned is that one of your counterparts in the PM team has done some analysis looking at, okay, once someone discovers experiences and they're poking around, that their sort of progression through the funnel from discovering an experience to actually booking an experience and attending it, etc., is pretty strong. We have a lot of data on the lodging side of the business of what that looks like. Okay. And experiences compares pretty favorably to it. So the team sort of feels hey, customers are saying good things. The people that know about it, that and are looking for it, seem to sort of go through the funnel at a reasonable rate. Mm-hmm. So how do we just get more of these people?
Okay, so getting more people. So it sounds like it might be a feature discoverability issue, because it sounds like the people who know about it doing great. They're like straight shooting to checkout and attendance. And once they attend, I'm making the assumption that the churn is not super high because they have such a great experience that they're going to want to come back and continue to attend as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you mentioned. So on the churn perspective, yes, you can assume that the retention of these customers is strong, and that like the repeat booking rate of experiences is I don't have the specific number, but it's consistent and in line with what we see on the lodging part of the business, where we've optimized things a lot. So again, the team feels good that it's not like, hey, customers said the product is great, but like they book once and never come back. So you can, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. And then I think your framing of feature discoverability seems like a fair way to think about it.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of similarities between like the lodging side of things and experiences. So it means like similar types of users, similar types of trips. And by types of trips, I mean like solo versus group trips. Um, and then I guess the only difference is like nobody's doing virtual house bookings. I don't know if they are. But their experiences are virtual, but I would say that like the types of people who are going for experiences versus lodging are similar. So like if we're trying to market to these certain people, we don't have to like take a drastically different approach in terms of approaching experiences folks the way that we do with lodging. We just have to get more of them, not do it differently.
Yeah, I think based off everything we know internally, we don't have anything that indicates that these are totally different segments of users. Like it seems like it's the same folks from everything we know.
Okay, cool. I would say those are all of my clarifying questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of go through my ideas of how I'm thinking about different solutions for driving the top of funnel growth of users. Okay. So if you could give me a moment to do that, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so kind of based off of the things that you've said, I've come up with solutions kind of directly related to the things that you've already mentioned that have been super helpful. So for one, we're thinking about top of funnel growth, and you mentioned that once people are like in the search experience of Airbnb experiences, they're like a straight shoot to attending an experience and having a great time. And so for me, the way that I'm thinking about it is like you enter the Airbnb app and like we're not having a problem with people discovering lodging, and that's kind of like how Airbnb primarily started. But now experiences was this new feature that was introduced on top of that. And I think that there might be a discoverability issue. Like the last time I checked Airbnb, there's no experiences tab. It's kind of like you have to scroll down and figure out that the experiences are a part of it, versus if you have like a mental framework of thinking about Airbnb as booking houses and you go on the app to book a house and you see the search bar, put in your date, I doubt that people are even getting as far down the page to discover the experiences section and then be taken to that. So I think one way to address that is by adding a tab separately instead of having people scroll down for experiences. And like when you introduce that tab, even doing like a nudge or like some kind of, ooh, look at this shiny new tab thing so that people
some visual flair.
Yeah, some visual flair, because I've noticed when a lot of like software products introduce something new, they'll like have a pop-up bubble or they'll have some kind of onboarding experience to say like, hey, we've added this feature and this is how it works and you should check it out. Because when you just like silently introduce it, I don't think it'll be as effective as if you direct attention towards it and you have a separate tab. So that's one way that I'm thinking about that. I think that assumes that people aren't scrolling down the page. I think in order to kind of validate whether that is a reasonable direction to go in, I'd need to know kind of like how the data on like how far people get down the page. Because let's say in this universe, for some reason, 100% of people scroll all the way down, and we're
Yeah,
assuming they actually see that, then maybe that's not the best choice
got
there.
it. So if I were like, hey, we've got some data that says 98% of people actually scroll to the bottom and see everything on the page, you would be like, okay, maybe this isn't the right path to go down.
Yeah, I would say that the page itself is presenting. I mean, I'll probably still do some user testing. Like people scroll, but they don't necessarily see everything. So like, hey, did you notice this feature? So like, I'll do user testing to confirm that, and then also have the data to say, oh, people actually see it there. So that's not the problem in the app.
Okay.
And then I'll try to think about different avenues besides just the app's UI to direct traffic to experiences. So that's one part of it.
Yep.
And then another part of it that you had addressed is the fact that the lodging side of Airbnb is doing great. Like they've lived their best life. They've been in the game for a really long time. And so I kind of would want to build Airbnb experiences growth off of that. Like if we are to have a successful lodging business, I think, for example, let's say someone books a home and they get taken to a tour. Sorry, I work at Redfin. Tour confirmation is like a default. They get taken to a home confirmation page, and then they also
Yep.
receive like a home confirmation text. They also receive a home confirmation email. There's Think of it as an upsell basically. These people who are already coming to Airbnb for the business of lodging can then be directed to the experiences.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned this during the question. You're talking about, oh, I'm the PM for experiences. People, I'm not focusing on where they're going to go. I'm going to focus on what they're going to do when they get there. So I see this as an opportunity to present people with, what do you want to do when you get here now that you've booked this experience, and like tie those things really, once you've booked this home, so tie those things really closely together. So that's another way that I'm thinking about that.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's like just sort of moving along the user journey with the user themselves, him or herself.
Mm-hmm. Clarifying questions on that one before I go to the last solution that I came up with.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before I move on?
Oh no, I mean I don't have any clarifying questions on that. I can see that making perfect sense. I think like upsells are sort of a tried and true mechanic. Logically makes sense. So
okay. So the last thing is that you also mentioned that once people go on these experiences, like the net promoter score, the NPS is like super high. They have an amazing time. And something that I found really interesting about that is like, okay, so people are having a really amazing time, but somehow that isn't translating to growth. Like that isn't translating to them bringing other people into literally the experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that Airbnb does with their lodging, is that they have like referral credits, like $50 or something. It's like a pretty solid amount of money. And I think if people aren't incentivized just on the joy of experience alone to tell other people, hey, you should do experiences, I had a really good time, you should try and check this out, I think that we could add a financial incentive there to give a referral credit to people. It's like, oh, if you go on an experience, then you can get money to give someone else an experience as well. And I think that a reason why I would be willing to do something like that is that you mentioned the fact that once people have an experience, the retention is super high. They're going to keep repeating booking. So when I'm thinking about customer acquisition costs in terms of this referral credit versus like their lifetime value, I'm making the assumption that their lifetime value, because they keep booking them, exceeds whatever cost it is for them to initially be incentivized to refer someone.
Yep. Got it. Yeah. I mean, and presumably, like if you were going to explore that further, like you could get all of that data. Like we have an LTV number, you could sort of do the math and figure out what does it make sense to offer in terms of a referral bonus.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the kind of the three solutions that I'm thinking through there.
Okay.
There questions based off of that, or I can kind of just talk about the way that I'll prioritize them?
Yeah, those all make sense to me. I'd be curious, how you would prioritize them and which one you would ultimately pursue.
Okay, well, so when I thought about, I kind of alluded to the fact that if people are scrolling to the bottom of the page in the app, that would cause me to deprioritize adding a tab, because discoverability within app, it doesn't seem to be the issue. It's about driving people to get as far as that.
Yeah.
So having that data, and then related is with the upsell with the Airbnb lodging business. I would kind of want to know data of like how many people are viewing these confirmation pages, how many people open these text messages that we send, how many people are opening these emails, how many people are engaging with these emails. Because
Okay.
if, I don't know, for some reason you confirm it and then like all of these surface areas that I want to use to upsell aren't actually highly engaged with or even highly viewed as much as I'm assuming, then that would also cause me to deprioritize it. Because the way I'm thinking about like growth is like the upper cap is like 100% of the people who see it can be captured in like some
Hmm.
magical ideal world. So I'd want to know, okay, how many people are seeing all of these surface areas to know which has like the highest potential, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And then when it comes to the net promoter score in terms of like the referral credit, in that case, I'm kind of making the assumption that all people who have booked a experience are then positive promoters. However, you had also mentioned that the purpose of this is to drive growth for experiences because it has a lower number of users than lodging. So I'd say if I were to prioritize the three of them, lodging would be at the top because it sounds like even if the net promoter score is high for people with experiences, there aren't as many people as lodging people. So
Mm.
their confirmation page or confirmation email, I'm making the assumption has more potential users to capture than the referral credit would. And then I would kind of just need the data about the people scrolling to the bottom of the page and the
Yep.
app as well.
Got it. Okay. I see what you're saying. And that makes sense to me. So I'll wave the magic wand here and get you some data.
Okay.
So let's say that on the homepage study, so how much of the homepage above the fold, below the fold do folks look at? We basically find that, Airbnb has these great metrics. Like everyone looks at everything. They seem to notice stuff. So it's not like they're looking at the whole page, but they're blind when it comes to the experiences section. So it seems like people are seeing stuff there. So that we have that data on the open rates. So in terms of text message confirmations, email confirmations, I think those are the two big types. I guess there's probably push notifications as well. Let's say that on average, the open rates are quite high because people have booked a vacation, they've booked lodging. We try and do a good job of making those notifications very useful. We see open rates of upwards of like 70%, like super high. So that's the data we have there, and it varies depending on the channel, but you can just assume the sort of average across the board is very, very high. And then the last sort of bucket of things you were looking at in terms of the, I think you asked about what's like the overall volume of like people coming through experiences today and would be available, as potential people to send out a referral code versus, lodging. Your assumption is right. Like the experience is so much smaller than the lodging business today that number is just a tiny, like single digit percentage of what happens on lodging. So I think your assumption there is correct. That just the volume of people you would have to send there is a lot lower.
Okay. And then one more clarifying question related to
Sure.
what you said. So Airbnb Experiences has like this really, really great rate of once you land on viewing the experiences results, you basically like end up in confirmation. Does that happen similarly with lodging? And the reason why I'm asking is because if all the people scroll down the entire page on the app for like the lodging experience, I'm making the assumption that that is like a much greater number than the people who confirm booking lodgings. So then the way that I'm thinking about this is like the people who view the app are the most, the people who confirm the lodging are the second most, and then the people who have a great NPS of experiences is the smallest number of people. Does that ranking of people volume sound reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, you just sort of talking about like the overall funnel. Like there's some people that see it, there's people that book it, and there's people that have great experiences, and that number whittles down.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to confirm that for the lodging, people who book homes on Airbnb, that number is some ratio smaller than the people who open the Airbnb app and view this tab.
And this tab being experiences.
Well, lodging experiences on the same tab because you have to scroll down, but we said 100% of people scroll down anyway.
Yes. So I think I might be missing the point of your question, but you're just asking, is the total number of people that view lodging? Let me let you rephrase, because I think I'm missing.
Yeah. So the key here is that I want to like rank by volume,
Okay.
and I'm saying that the people who view a confirmation page for lodging is a much smaller number than the people who open the app and view the page that talks about experiences in lodging. Whereas earlier you had said that people who view experiences basically are straight shoot to checkout, and those numbers are similar. So I'm trying to make the assumption here that for lodging it's not similar, and like a much smaller subsection of people gets a confirmation than people who just like open the app and view it.
Oh, sorry. So what I was saying earlier is that once people are sort of engaged and like truly searching around in experiences, like let's say they're like aware and interested in discovering what's there, that those people end up booking an experience at the same rate that you see people on the lodging side of the business going from like looking and searching to book it.
Okay.
So like the way to think about it would be like, say on, the lodging business, like if 100 people show up and start searching for different places to stay, that, whatever, like 10% of them end up booking a place.
Okay.
The same thing is true in experiences, where the people that are like looking around at a bunch of experiences, like they're truly engaged, they know it's there, etc. 10% of them end up booking as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that answers my question. Okay, so given that information, the way that I'm prioritizing, so the three features were a tab in the app for people to discover experiences rather than scrolling down the page, and then upselling on the confirmation surfaces for people who book a lodging, and then having a referral credit. And given volume, I'm prioritizing by volume here. I would say that the discovery tab would have the highest volume, since you said about 10% of engaged users book a place. So that means if I were to prioritize the confirmation page, I'm missing like 90% of possible people. So I want to prioritize like the app surface area first, and then the second from there would be the confirmation surface areas, and then the last one, because it has the smallest volume, would be the referral credit, because there's such a small base of people who have even had experiences in the first place.
Got it. Okay. So you're really going to basically prioritize based off like, hey, like we just need more people at the very tippy top of our Airbnb funnel to like start engaging with experiences. And the way to do that is to give them a tab that really sort of calls it out and invites them in.
Yeah, I would also argue that there would be even more volume if we introduce the tab, because people who book lodging are doing things in person. The lodging is in person, versus by having this tab for discovering Airbnb experiences, we open it up to people who aren't even booking something in person. And so many of these experiences are virtual as well. So I think that it presents the highest opportunity without relying on them having booked lodging first.
That's true. That's a good point. The experiences, given that there's a mix of them that are virtual, are open to a significantly bigger audience.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm prioritizing it. And so given that, we're going to kind of move forward with adding this discovery tab for experiences to the app. And the way that I would think about success for that is, out of the number of people who use the app, how many people click the tab when it's introduced. So let's say we introduce the tab with a nudge being like, hey, here's this cool new thing. I would want to look at data of like how many people are dismissing that tab versus how many people are clicking on dismissing the nudge versus clicking on the tab, to know if this is something that actually interests people. And then of the people who are clicking the tab to discover it, how many of those people are then going to some level of engaged? Because you said that once we get them to be engaged with experiences, we have like a pretty good checkout rate. So I'd want to know how many people are using the app? Of those people, how many people get put into this um, experience where they're viewing the tab? How many of those people are dismissing the nudge versus engaging with it? And then how many people who engage with it actually continue on to then become Airbnb experience customers
Okay.
as well? And something that I'd also kind of want to look at, which is like farther down the funnel, is seeing if there's any effect. I don't know if this is too far of a metric to check, but like if there's any effect on that promoter score, because something that I've learned as a growth product manager is sometimes you can drive a lot of growth, but if it's not like the right target of user or the quality of user,
Mm,
something that presents an opportunity that really solves the user problem for the person you're presenting it to, then the quality of their experience actually goes down because you're pushing growth without thinking about it in a targeted way. So I'd also want to make sure that net promoter score doesn't drop significantly while driving growth.
got it. So you would be worried about like, hey, like we're being a little aggressive by like featuring this tab and nudging people to check out experiences. And we need to make sure that it's not so sort of aggressive that we ruin the overall experience, hurt the experience of sort of coming to Airbnb to find either lodging or experiences.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And then, sorry. I
Go
also want
ahead.
to make the assumption, well, not the assumption, I also want to analyze the data to make sure that we're not hurting Airbnb lodging metrics as well. Because when
Okay.
I think about Airbnb lodge, because they're both based in the same app, so they could have an effect on each other. So as a guardrail, I'd want to make sure that I'm not hurting that, especially given that I'm assuming that the profit margins for lodging is much larger than like a $30 experience, like a $300 or $700 booking is much larger. So I would even, I would say any significant damage to that would become higher priority than growth that we drive towards experiences based off of revenue, because at the end of the day we're a company and we have to make money. So
fair enough. Okay. Great. So it sounds like you would focus on the tab. There's a few metrics that you're going to look at to sort of see ultimately, like, I think it was like how many people like click in versus dismiss that tab. And then you want to look at some metrics to make sure there's not sort of cannibalization of the lodging business, as well as just looking at overall sort of NPS to make sure people are still having a good experience on the website app. Let me ask you one last question on the success metrics. So if let's say we wave our magic wand, you get the data like, hey, we know that NPS isn't going down. We know that the lodging business is not being cannibalized. So like we can take those risks or concerns sort of off the table. And you're sort of left with, okay, like the bad things that I'm sort of, the side effects are not happening. So that's good. What, like, if you had to prioritize and say like one metric that you would look at to like, okay, like is the work I'm doing really driving the growth we were hoping for? What would the single one you'd want to use to like give yourself just like a high level like gut check? Yeah, this is working. This is actually driving growth for experiences.
yeah, I would say the North Star in this case would probably be completed experiences, because we had said before that once people are engaged, they're pretty good at getting to checkout. So if that remains the same, then that means by growing the top of funnel, then we should have grown completed experiences. And if not, then there's something we're missing along the way.
Okay, so you just track absolute number of completed experiences, and if the tab is working, that number should be going up.
I mean, kind of when you put it that way, it kind of almost makes me second guess myself. I guess one clarifying question there is the only way to book the completed experience, to book an experience, is through the app. I guess we had never really talked about the distinction between the app and the website. So in that case, I'd focused on adding a tab to the app. So in this case, I'd want completed experiences booked through the app to go up, because that's where we introduced this.
Okay, that's a fair distinction. I was actually thinking when you said app, I was just thinking inclusively like the web app and the mobile app. We didn't really get into the design of it too much, but that's fine. Okay, so that makes sense. Tracking number of completed sessions going up, and that would go up as long as like your funnel holds steady.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for running me through that.